All righty. And let's get to the PowerPoint here too. Oh. All righty. Welcome everyone to our chapter leader session where we talk about the chapter Hallmark Awards. We're grateful that you're here during this very busy time of year. We hope we're able to answer all of your questions at the end. If you have questions while our presenters are speaking, please put them in the chat and then we'll get to them at the end. So today we're going to focus on Honors and Action Project Awards. Today our presenters, both Ryan and I, welcome you to the session. We are excited to get to this point in the year and that this is the third one for chapter leaders, and we know we have advisors in the room as well, so thank you. Once this session has been finished, we will get a link to the recording and also the PowerPoint to you within the next couple of days, along with all the previous recordings, right? So these are tools and resources that are really good to be using while you are working your way to the finish line. And we'll have some announcements and some bling at the end of the session. So to get started, all of the members, well, most of the members of the student engagement team are here with us, our presenters today. You cannot talk about chapter Hallmark Awards, College Project, and Honors in Action without asking, and they are always so willing to present on the Hallmark Awards. When we do these, they are the best. They are the queen of the Hallmarks. You can't get any more better guidance and support. So Susan Edwards, our Associate Vice President of Honors Programs and Undergraduate Research, as well as Jennifer Stanford, Associate Vice President of Program Implementation. And Ryan and I serve as the chapter outreach and development coordinators for divisions 1 through 4. And we are glad to be with you today. Reagan Chastain, our curriculum developer, is with us today as well. She'll be monitoring the chat. And we'll get started. So it's my honor to turn it over to Jennifer, correct?
Sure. I'm just going to do a couple of housekeeping things when it comes to Hallmark Awards for anyone who may not have been able to join us for a previous Hallmark Awards session. We just want to remind you that all chapter advisors have immediate access to the Hallmark Award applications, and it's on the same website that you find the PTK scholarship app, which is my.ptk.org. But in order for your students to access the award entries, the advisor does need to report them as a Hallmark delegate. And we highly recommend, you don't have to have more than 1 or 2 members that are doing that. It's really for whoever is going to go in and copy and paste the finalized content, because we definitely recommend that you finalize your content before you enter it onto the online application system. That'll be a lot easier if you do that. And so advisors, you're going to report a chapter Hallmark delegate just like you report a chapter officer. It's the same process. But if you have any questions about that, certainly reach out and let us know. We can help you with that. And then we want to do the next slide is just a review of the Hallmark Award deadlines coming up. We are focused on the chapter hallmarks during this presentation, but we certainly want you to take note that the administrator award entries are due next week. In fact, a week from today on December 8th. And all of these deadlines are listed for 5 p.m. Central Time. So it's always good to make sure your students are aware of that and they're not thinking, oh, I've got till midnight to file these. It is a 5 p.m. deadline. And so the very next deadline, I was just going to say the next the next deadline is January 12th, and that's for the other individual awards, chapter members, officers, and advisors. And then, of course, what we're talking about today, Honors in Action and College Project, are due January 19th. May seem like a long time from now, but it is approaching rapidly. So hopefully you guys are gearing up and making those role assignments of, who's going to be writing, editing, and proofreading. But we are ready to dive into the honors in action portion. So, Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jennifer, and welcome everybody. We're really excited to be here, and I'm always excited to talk about honors in action. You notice on the slide that one of the really cool things about engaging in the Honors in Action Hallmark Award, part of the Hallmark Awards program, is that we will award winning entries a space in our Civic Scholar Journal for Undergraduate Research. So we'd like to think you can get recognized at the regions, you can get recognized internationally, and then your team also can have a published piece in the journal. And that's a really cool thing for your resumes. It's a really wonderful thing to get your work out there so that people see it. And so we really encourage that. And Jennifer is going to talk about College Project later, but we also now have a journal called Changemakers that is for winning college project entries. So really looking at both the chapter entries, you have an opportunity to be published as a team, for your chapter to be published. And it's really exciting. The other thing it can do for you, of course, is that you can share that with college administrators and faculty and with board of directors and trustees members, and hopefully gain additional support for your chapter. So it's something to shoot for, and we're excited to read about what you've been doing all year, and in honoring some of the very top chapters by having them appear in the journal. So let's talk about honors in action and what you really should be thinking about as you're moving forward. So we have a knowledge question. If I can read it here, I'm going to move. Okay. True or false? Both honors in action and college project entries are based on activities completed between January and December 2021. You can put your answer in the chat. Is that true or false that both honors in action and college project entries are based on activities completed between January and December of 2021?
A T or F to make it easy, if you want to
There
put
you
that.
go. All right.
Okay.
I like that. I'm guessing true.
All right.
Very good. I can see answers rolling in. I know this is true, that for the entries you're going to be working on and submitting in January, the projects should be completed, or activities completed between January 1st and December 31st of 2021. So we are in the last month of the completion of those projects. So here's another knowledge check. True or false? Your chapter's projects must be outstanding to be submitted for Hallmark Awards. So your chapter projects must be outstanding to be submitted for Hallmark Awards. Is that true or false? Okay, clearly many of you have taken true false exams. This one is false, of course, because there are so many opportunities for submitting entries in the Hallmark Awards competition, which is the competitive part, but submitting chapter Hallmark Awards gets you hopefully to your 5-star status and the 5-star development plan. It allows you to talk about and write about what you've done all year so that you can share those things with people on campus and with collaborators who have helped you with projects all year. And then, of course, you have a chance to celebrate both at the chapter and college levels, at your regions, and then internationally at PTK Catalyst 2022. So that one's false. We want you to submit what you've been up to. So here's the first part of Honors in Action. The cornerstone of Honors in Action is the honor study topic, and our 2020-2021 honor study topic, which is in its last month for us, is To the 7th Generation, Inheritance and Legacy. And on this slide, you see that there are 7 themes. You have no doubt already selected your theme and you're writing about why you selected that particular theme. But the honor study topic is vitally important. And as you're preparing to do your Hallmark Award entries, I don't know if I can click on, Patty, can you click on the honors program guide there? There you go. Thank you. Don't forget to demonstrate that you have researched and and know what the honor study topic is. So one of the first things you want to do, if you haven't done this, I recommend in that first question for honors in action, which is about writing an abstract of up to 300 words, write out the title to the honors study topic, signal to the judges right off the bat that you know that it's to the 7th generation inheritance and legacy. And I know that that's a lot of words, but it is absolutely worth it because it helps with points. When the judges can see that you know what the honor study topic is. So those themes that you see underneath the topic on this slide, those are lenses through which you're actually looking at inheritance and legacy in this case. So make sure the judges know that. It doesn't hurt as you go throughout your entry to really use the words inheritance and legacy as you see fit, that as you're walking the judges through your honors and action process and through your entry, or synonyms that actually fit for those words. That's very helpful as judges are reading honors and action entries. So with our next slide, read the rubric. If you don't have a copy of the rubric, there are 2 places you can read it. You can go to the Hallmark Awards site and you'll see the entire rubric and the questions that are asked for Hallmark Award entries. You also will see the rubric, the top of the rubric, the full points part of the rubric in the honors program guide. So it's really important. I know that that can seem, like it's a lot of words and maybe it's a pain to go look at the rubric, but the planning rubric that you're using is the same rubric honors in action Hallmark Award judges will use to score your entry. They're looking directly at it as they're reading the entry. So you want to read the rubrics, you want to plan. I recommend getting together as a team and talking about what you really worked on, what the high points of the project have been, maybe what some of the challenges have been and how you overcame those challenges. And then follow the rubric as you're writing and working through the entry. Make sure you're looking at everything that the rubric is telling you to write about. So this is technical writing. It's not really creative writing. You're writing to the rubric so that the judges can give you the most points you can score for what you've been working on. And that's what writing in the entry is all about. So there are 3 major components. There's the academic rigor of research, which is worth 34 points, service and action, which is worth 33 points, and impact, which is worth 33 points. And having said all of that, don't discount the academic rigor of research. It's worth 34 points, but then if you look at the parts of the rubric that are talking about service and action and about impact, you will find lots of other places and lots of other points to be scored that are about your academic investigation and its connection to the action and to the impact of your project. So take a look at the rubric for that and see that, okay, yes, how we allocate our words, our 2,600 words matters. And then you want to make sure that the academic investigation is sort of woven throughout the entry, so that in the places in the rubric where you should be tying the other pieces to the academic investigation, you're going to pick up those points when you do that. So the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's what you want to look at about the things that chapters very often will overlook in the rubric. So in what's missing with academic rigor and research, the emphasis is always on intentional research. The fact that your team knew what the honor study topic was, that the theme was deliberately, intentionally chosen. You may have thought of other themes to consider, and you can even write about that, but you've had some intention behind what you did. And then, that you're tying it back as the lens to the honor study topic is really important. Don't forget your research objectives. I know some of you have been to some of the other webinars we've been doing on honors in action and college project. And in this case, research objectives are really often left out by chapters. But you want to score those points. So there are lots of ways to look at research objectives. I think on the next slide, we'll talk about that. But I want to mention also, for full points in an honors in action Hallmark Award entry, you need 8 academic sources. They need to be clearly academic. They need to represent varied viewpoints. They don't have to be binary. They don't have to be diametrically opposed, but how different scholars look at the same topic in different ways. It's really important to showcase that. Also, don't forget your annotations. And I think that the next slide also talks a little bit more about annotations and what those mean to what your write-up is. So let's look at, I think we have another question, a knowledge check. Multiple choice, academic sources should be written in which format? A is MLA, B is APA, and C, it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. So MLA is A, APA is B, and it does not matter unless you're consistent. Okay, I think that most of you are seeing that APA is the format you need to write your citations in. So a couple of things about that. Go ahead and write your citations now. Assign somebody from the chapter, from your team, to go ahead and make sure all your APA citations are written, that they work with the 7th edition of the APA manual. Also really important because there were some slight changes between the 6th edition and the 7th edition. So if you're using an online tool to help generate your citations, make sure you are using a tool that gives you the 7th edition version of the citations. But also pay attention to the things like capitalization of words and which ones should be capitalized and things. And Robin's saying it helps that she teaches APA in her English courses. Yes, it does. You want experts like Robin who can help you. You don't have to know how to do APA citations. You need to learn how to do APA citations, and coaches and assistant coaches can help you with that. We also have in our chapter leaders guide online, we have some exercises you can go through to teach the APA 7th edition citations. And so, and you can see that in Research Edge as well. So we are not leaving you out there, but this is something you don't want to leave till the last minute. And here's why. When you're working on your Hallmark Award entries, if you're hoping to score points, APA citations are worth 3 points. But very typically the difference between chapters is maybe 1/4 of a point. It really matters that you pay attention to these details. So get the citations written now, have someone in charge of those, have someone check to make sure we're writing the new honors program guide, for example. And the best copy editor I know is Jennifer Stanford. She's following behind me to see as not the best copywriter. You want people who can help you out and take a look at what your citations and your entry look like and where they can be improved. So let's look at that next slide. So here's that intentional, the research objectives. You want to have objectives that look like they're definitely intentional, that you've set these, that you're looking at things like the development of the honors and action team, maybe the number of sources you've used. You might have used more than 8 sources. You're going to write the bibliographies, the annotated bibliographies for 8 of them, but you can write about other sources as well in your research conclusions section of the Honors and Action Hallmark Award entry. So don't discount that you can write, use other sources in writing about your work. I had a chapter, I think yesterday, asked about doing interviews, and they had done a whole series of interviews. But it's probably not the best idea to use 8 interviews as your 8 sources. You want to mix it up a little bit and show that you've used not just those expert sources, but you've used some things that are analytical, maybe journal articles, for example, which are maybe they're books, and things that really back up some of your research. And so, but the chapter can use those interviews in the research conclusions section. And so, just think about what you want to put forward, what those 8 sources you want to put forward, what you want to do with maybe other sources that were meaningful to your team, but you're going to put someplace else. Those are kinds of things that you can think about with research objectives. And then, how are you going to determine your research conclusions? What about reflecting? If you're thinking about your sources and you're writing about them, maybe in terms of notes, how are you going to keep notes? Those are the kinds of things that can be research objectives. Make sure you have some. If you don't have them yet, make sure you get some. And then next year you can start again doing them at the beginning. But you need research objectives. Don't lose those points. You're going to need objectives for the other parts of honors in action as well, but this is the one that people miss. Our next slide. Thank you. Academic sources and annotations. I'm going to say a little bit more about this. Make sure those 8 sources you're using are academic sources. You know, that means they're vetted, they're published by academics, by professors, by experts in their fields. Sometimes you're working on subjects that maybe are a little bit more contemporary. So you may be looking at journalists' work that has been edited heavily, not newspapers. Those are great starting sources, and you might even write about some of those in your research conclusions. But here you don't want to put newspapers. For the most part, you don't want to put websites. You want to make sure they're solidly academic sources. And then you want, again, to have those varied viewpoints. Make sure you've got that. The other thing that people very often miss is that you want to make sure that you're looking at things from a global perspective with at least one of your sources. Most chapters work locally, but these issues and the themes are all global in nature as well. So we'd love for you to have considered that, and it's part of the rubric. So take a look at that with the sources you're putting forward as well. And then the annotations are not, they are not just overviews of your sources. What you want to do with your annotations, they can be 2 or 3 sentences, you know, concise sentences, but you want to talk about why the sources were meaningful to your team. You know, why these sources, what difference did they make? How did they have an impact on where you went with this intentional research and maybe where you went with your action ultimately? So you're walking the judges through why you selected these sources, how they showed the pieces of the rubric that are about varied sources and varied viewpoints, you know, and then why these sources were the ones that really led you down the path to where you're going to make your research conclusions and determine your action. So the write-up, what's missing? Make sure with service and action. I think most chapters are really good about saying, here's what we did. And of course, you want to do that because the rubric does ask you about that. But here's some things that are typically missing. Communication, you know, communication among yourselves, communication between you and collaborators. You know, you have to have collaborators on campus who are not part of Phi Theta Kappa, and then collaborators in the community. And the rubric specifically asked about how you communicated with them and what the plan was. So make sure you think about that you write about that. That's really important. And then there you see that heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues. You want to think about that. You want to write about that. You've got this, but make sure you get it down on paper. And then increased appreciation for the value of informed action as a lifelong endeavor. The action in honors in action is all about informed action, that you have done the research into the honors study topic and that has guided you to your action. And you want to write about, you know, in what ways did you increase your appreciation for the value of informed action? I probably recommend not saying you didn't, because the rubric isn't written that way, but it could be, you know, to a greater or lesser degree. And you can think about, well, what is it that your team, in fact, increased appreciation for? And then I mentioned communication with collaborators. This is part of the rubric. There's clear and compelling evidence that communication among the participating individuals and or organizations was effective and efficient, and that they explicitly shared common objectives. So, you know, if you haven't shared your objectives with your collaborators, you may want to do that and write about that. Make sure that you make it very clear how you communicated with your collaborators. And it's really nice if your collaborators made a really big difference in your project, even at the academic investigation stage, at the research stage, at the reflection stage. Write about that. You know, talk to the judges about how those collaborators made a difference, that, you know, you chose well with your collaborators. And maybe you end up writing about how they didn't make a difference, but I'm going to hope for the best that they did, and you want to write about that. Right, and then the heightened awareness and service and action, heightened awareness for self and community in relation to global issues. The rubric asks for solid, specific evidence that's given that the chapter, the college, and community participants heighten their awareness of self and community in relation to global issues. So that's why it's really important to share your objectives and even to share the rubric and what you're going for and what you're hoping to have really happen with your project. If you haven't shared with collaborators that they have heightened awareness of self and community in relation to the issues, for example, maybe you haven't shared the honor study topic with them, do that and then write about it. You want to make sure that you're talking about very specifically how the chapter and the college and the community heightened awareness of self and community. Get those points. And then increased appreciation for the value of informed action as a lifelong endeavor. We've talked about this, that again, the rubric specifically says that you've provided clear, strong, and specific evidence that participants increased their appreciation for the value of informed action or service as a lifelong endeavor. These are the kinds of things you want to talk about when you're brainstorming. What evidence can you specifically come up with as a team so that you can get together and whoever's going to write that first draft of the entry can make sure these things are part of the entry, and then you can go back and review and make sure that they're there. All right, a multiple choice knowledge check. The post we created raised awareness about the importance of supporting small businesses and the trades and craftsmanship still alive in our communities today. This statement is an example of A, communication, B, heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues awareness, and C, increased appreciation for the value of informed action as a lifelong learner. What do you think? A, B, or C? All right, we've got lots of B's. The heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues awareness. This actually comes from an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry that had done a really good job of talking about why trade and craftsmanship was important in the industry and in the community and what difference it made. They get even more specific here about what they were talking about, in terms of their particular community and how their community fit in to the global trade and business that they were talking about, and they had done a really good job. So yes, very good. That's not hard, right? That's one sentence. And, adding some detail and you've got it. All right, then impact in the round. What's missing? The impact statement's really important, and you only have 2,600 words to write, so it does take a lot of editing to get this done. But don't skimp on the impact, because remember, it's 33 points of the entry. And so you want to make sure that you're showing some balance in how you're using your words. Here's what chapters very often miss. One is about the contributions to understanding the honor study topic. The rubric talks about the contributions for your team, maybe for your chapter, for the college, beyond Phi Theta Kappa, for a community, for your collaborators. What kinds of contributions did you make to understanding the honor study topic? Because remember, that goes back to the foundation of Honors in Action. You want to write about that. Again, brainstorm. If you're not sure, brainstorm as a team so you come up with what the answer to that is. And then understanding the importance of lifelong intentional service. It comes up in the impact statement. You're going to want to write about that and think about what your team has in terms of understanding the importance of lifelong intentional service. And remember, it's not just lifelong service, it's lifelong intentional service. It's all about that doing your homework, doing the research when making decisions about how you're going to best serve your college and your community. All right, so here, understanding the contribution here's what the rubric says. Without question, the project made a substantial, specific contribution to participants' understanding of a theme as it relates to the current honor study topic. So you've got several things there. You want to make sure that your entry shows that you really did some substantial research, that you really thought about the topic, and that what your specific contributions were. This isn't necessarily oh my gosh, new research. My mind is blanking on that word, but it's original research. But for your team, it's probably something you didn't know coming into this process. And you're always going back to having an understanding of the honor study topic and your theme as it relates to the topic. So, leave the judges with the understanding that what that topic is and that your theme was the lens and specifically how you made that contribution. All right, in the end, here's the entry or the rubric. It says the entry provided clear, strong, and specific evidence that participants increased their appreciation for the value of informed action and service as a lifelong endeavor. You want to be specific about this. Don't just write that your team increased our appreciation for the value of informed action and service as a lifelong endeavor. It's fine to use that sentence, but then to get those points, you've got to go back and say, by doing this or because of this. You've got to explain why. You want to provide that evidence because that's how you score points with Honors in Action Hallmark Award entries. So I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer to talk about the college project, and I know we'll be answering questions as well.
Yes, and if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, even if it's about Honors in Action. We want to make sure that we answer your questions while we're all here together. But of course, we've got our email addresses that are going to be shown at the end of this presentation, so you can follow up with us then if you think of questions later. So College Project, this is the second project out of 2 that you'll be doing if you're planning to be a 5-star chapter. And so we wanted to really look at, just like we did with Honors in Action, some areas that chapters may miss in the rubrics when they're writing up their project. But first, we're going to do a quick knowledge check. The main purpose of the college project is A, to provide a service to the college, B, inform administration of student issues, or C, strengthen the relationship with the college administration. So go ahead and put your answers in there. And remember, the key phrase here is main purpose of the college project. Okay, I'm seeing, okay, all right, we've still got some answers coming in, so. All right, okay, we'll go ahead and reveal the answer. It is C. And I know this can be a little bit of a trick question because in some ways a college project is providing a service to the college administration. But at the heart of the project is to really strengthen that relationship between the chapter and the college administration. So it is a joint project. It is not just something that the chapter is doing on behalf of the college. It really is something that they have met together first, discussed, and related it to the college's mission or priorities. That is key, that it is mutually decided upon instead of the chapter just saying, hey, this would be a great thing to do for the college, and then proceeding with that with no input or approval from the administration. So we really want you to be able to highlight that during your college project entry, because that is the main purpose. So let's look at the rubrics. There are only 5 components that you're judged on for the college project. Presentation at the very end, that's really just the spelling and grammar. The 4 main categories are preparation or planning, leadership development, and we're going to talk about each of these items to expand more about what this means. The communications and cooperative effort between or among all of the contributors, and then of course impact. So looking at preparation, here are a couple things that we normally see missing in the college project entry. And this is not for every chapter, of course, but there are some chapters that, just like Susan was saying for the honors study topic in the Honors in Action entry, they think, well, maybe we don't need to, waste our words on sharing what the college's mission statement or priorities are. And it's true, we're certainly not wanting to have you reiterate the entire statement or a strategic plan, but it is essential to make sure that the entry shares that the chapter members were very intentional about looking up the mission statement, reviewing the priorities, and then tying specifically how your project that you've mutually agreed upon with the college administration to do relates directly to that mission or a strategic plan priority. So that is a key component that sometimes is glossed over in the chapter's entries. All right, next one, the big category of leadership development. There actually are several components to this one. And each of these four main rubric categories, there are 5 different components. So we're just, again, just pulling out a couple to talk about. So we do want to make sure that you review the entire college rubric, and that's at ptk.org/hallmarks, as well as it's inside the online application. There's a link to the judging rubrics there as well. But looking at leadership development, of course, it talks about, it's an opportunity for the chapter to talk about their specific leadership roles. We want the chapter to collaborate not only with the college, but it can also involve other students, other non-members of PTK. That's perfectly fine. But this is an opportunity to really demonstrate what the chapter's leadership role was. And then to reflect on how the chapter went about planning the implementation of the project. Sometimes that really is missing in chapter's entries. We want to see that because that's really where those skills and that intentional leadership development is discussed, and it allows the judge to give full points for your entry. So, you know, the critical thinking and strategic thinking that went into how you organized your plan of attack, if you will, for the college project, those are key details that you want to be sure to mention. And part of that is really having an honest assessment of where chapter members are with, you know, maybe there are some skills that need to be enhanced or completely gained in order to do a good job with implementing the college project. And so which resources, experts, et cetera, that you reached out to really strengthen those skills and knowledge areas, all of that should be discussed when you're talking about leadership development. And I know Susan mentioned this too. Even though the questions are very specific for the college project, and even with Honors in Action, there are definitely going to be areas that you can reiterate certain points as you're discussing it in other questions. So don't feel like every single element related to preparation or leadership development can only be contained in those specific questions. Again, you're painting a picture with your entire entry of your chapter's work on the college project. And so the judge is reading it holistically as well. So it's always good to keep that in mind. Okay, communication and cooperative effort. You know, the flexibility, this kind of goes along with the strategic thinking and the planning process of implementing an effective college project. What are the areas that popped up that maybe hadn't been, you know, foreseen, that you really did have to step back and maybe approach it a different way? If the project really hits a major obstacle and it requires a new direction, the judges are going to be looking at, did the chapter go back to the administration to have that discussion? You know, they didn't act unilaterally to change the focus of the college project, but they again focused on that cooperative effort. And there may be some creativity that you can show there. You know, if you feel like you have a very straightforward project, that maybe you didn't run into any major obstacles, well, that's an area that you can use to showcase how you were very strategic in setting up the planning so that you did anticipate anything that, you know, may have been an obstacle or something that would have delayed your progress. So use that, you know, don't leave points on the table, as they say. Try to think about areas where you can show that kind of foresight that allowed you to be flexible or to avoid areas that may have, you know, curtailed your total impact of the project. The regular updates and final report too, we know a lot of chapters will do a great job of showing that they met with the college president at the very beginning, but they'll leave out any type of communication after that. And while the college president is probably not going to be in on every single discussion or meeting related to the college project, you do want to have some mechanism to keep them informed of your progress. And then, of course, that final report, feel free to use your college project Hallmark Award entry if you'd like to share that as the final report. But again, if the project is all about strengthening that relationship, you want to make sure that you close the loop on what was done through the college project, even if it wasn't completely finished. Because again, you want to make sure the president knows that your chapter was taking this seriously, that they really are doing their best on it, and provide that update and share what is planned, maybe to wrap things up or to go in a different direction if needed. Okay, so impact. Again, we've talked about that, demonstrating that strengthened relationship. We've added a question this year that is very pointedly saying, how did your relationship with the college administration, how was it affected? And so we try to make sure that we're prompting you to give us this type of detail. But it doesn't have to be completely a rosy picture. Sometimes there may not have been as many meetings that you had hoped because of what's going on campus, different priorities that popped up. So be honest about that. This is what we mean with meaningful reflection. And as we said in the knowledge check, it doesn't have to be an award-winning project, an outstanding project that everything went well in order for you to write it up and really benefit from that experience. The Hallmark Awards certainly are about recognition, but it's also about giving you those transferable skills that you can use based on what your chapter was able to accomplish. So we're not looking for, I love Patty will say this, Patty will say, it doesn't have to be a Nobel Peace Prize winning entry. You can still benefit from the Hallmark Awards process by just reflecting and going through that writing and editing process. Okay, and don't forget, you're still tying back that college project to the college's mission and priorities. This is not based on a Phi Theta Kappa program. In fact, it really should be different from your Honors in Action project. Only occasionally will they maybe intersect. You might have some leadership development activities that you did for Honors in Action that can be used and were used to help inform your college project. But other than that, these really are two separate projects. So think of it in those terms. All right, so we've got our email addresses up here, but we still have time to answer questions during this session. And so I think that Susan and Reagan and the others have been also answering questions too in the chat, but is there anyone that we want to highlight specifically, maybe from the chat?
I can mention something. Robin had asked a question about APA, and there are guidelines under APA, for example, that sources have to be 5 years or newer, that we don't follow. That's an exception to what we do. When you're doing your citations, follow APA 7th edition. But in terms of sources, you may be looking at sources, for example, that are 10 years old, but they're perfectly meaningful for what you're doing as a project. So don't let that part stop you. And then knowing when you're working on Hallmark Award entries, APA wants you to write in Times New Roman font, but our system isn't going to recognize the font that you're using necessarily. So, don't worry about that. Don't write in a cursive script or font either. You want it to be easily readable, but don't worry about those two things. Those are two exceptions to the rule, but follow APA for your citations. That is really important.
Yes, and Susan, I can add on to that bold, italics, and underlining are not part of our online application software. So those things are not counted off on their APA citations. And I do want, I know that, when you were talking about that, I mean, certainly a topic like inheritance and legacy, certainly, chapters could be, researching something that's more of a foundational work. It could be, centuries, or certainly decades old if it's a seminal work. So that definitely makes sense. If, obviously you don't want 8 of those sources to be, all older than 5 years, but certainly if you have 1 or 2, I think that's understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't, if you have 8 sources that are older than 5 years, you probably haven't done a really thorough search, because there are going to be things that are reinterpreted or just discovered or rediscovered. And you want to look at those more contemporary sources.
Right.
So what questions do you have?
Yeah, even with things like, the whole process of setting up your Hallmark Awards writing and editing team. I know on previous sessions, we've talked about that timeline. It really varies chapter to chapter, but we don't want chapter members and advisors to spend their entire winter break having to focus on Hallmark Awards. We understand you may have a work day worked into that time period. But again, we know everyone, especially at the end of the year, needs a good break. And so that's why we hope that you're taking advantage of, getting an early start on writing the entries, as most chapters are wrapping up their projects. Very few have things that go up until December 31st. So it's perfectly okay. And certainly the individual award categories, don't forget about those. That's something that I know we can focus on the chapter award categories and kind of forget that you want to nominate a member, or hello members, be sure to nominate your advisors. We've talked about administrator awards that are due next week. So those are all really important parts of Hallmark Awards. And, we want to celebrate individuals as well as chapter teams during PTK Catalyst.
And there's, go
Elena,
ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
But Elena's asked, when do most chapters begin honors in action? It's all over the place, but because some chapters do begin in January of any given year, which is when you're able to begin that process. I'd say most chapters begin their process sometime between May and late August or early September with the changes. I think that's really common for chapters. One best practice that many chapters use is to go ahead and do their college project in the spring, and then in the summer and fall work on their honors in action project, to separate them. Many chapters work on them together, but it can really alleviate some stress if you separate them and do them in different semesters.
Right. Yes, and it looks like Robin and Terry both have a good time period to focus on honors in action. And, one of the great things about doing a project in the spring, like the college project, it can be a great way to involve new members. It's sometimes not as extensive a project as honors in action. It varies, depending on what your college administration expectations are. But sometimes it can be something that, really will just take a couple of months from beginning to end. And so that's a nice thing to get out of the way. As Susan said, before you can spend the rest of the year focused on honors in action. Okay, I'm going through just to make sure, but it looks like we've answered most of the questions. So I know Ryan and Patty have some bling to share as well. So that's a great idea. We always use the case study challenge as the jumping off point for honors in action. Yeah.
Okay, Robin. There is one question from Lydia.
Okay.
See, is there a place where the due dates are listed in one place? I feel a bit overwhelmed by various dates.
Totally understandable. And yes, it is ptk.org/hallmarks. And I put that in the chat, but that is kind of our main page of the Hallmark Awards section of our website. And so you'll see when you go to that, if it was a scroll down, all of the award category deadlines are listed there. And one of the things, and thank you, I know Ryan has listed them as well in the chat, But one of the reasons why we have spaced them out is because, we really did get feedback about chapters, trying to get everything done for the same deadline. And so this allows you to kind of get out of the way those administrator awards, then the other individual categories, and then spend the final week getting those chapter award entries finalized. So we hope that helps. You'll see the Hallmark Awards section has lots of other resources. You'll see all the judging rubrics and entry questions listed there. Just click on Hallmark Award categories on the right-hand side. There are other resources to help with, advisor awards, administrator awards, really the college project and honors in action links. We've got other webinars that we've done that we've got a link to on that page. So lots of good stuff there that you'll find on our main Hallmark, our main website. And just remember that the actual applications are listed at my.ptk.org.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer and Susan. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Ryan, we're gonna talk about upcoming events, and we're gonna split the page. So Ryan, we're gonna talk about the first one.
All right, so our next advisor session that's coming up is December 15th, again at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we would love to have you all there. And it's more of a appreciation and a celebrating you and thanking you for sticking it out with our students all year long for the fall semester, working so hard, getting ready, all this crazy deadline talk, getting everything in. And we just want to have some time with you all and to say thank you. So we really appreciate if you all do come to it. You don't have to sign up because you already have the link. We just want you to pop in. And then if you haven't set a goal, please go in and set a goal. And you're like, if you haven't set a goal and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? Just email Patty or I, and we can let you know. And we can send that to you.
Right, that's awesome. Yeah, we hope to see all the advisors on the 15th. And just today, we added one more session. It's the last session that pertains to 2021, but we're going to hold it in 2022. It's our Rock the Finish Line event, and we're going to combine, we're asking all advisors who are interested, chapter officers and members to join this session on January 5th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will send a link out to you for registering. This is our last chance session to get for you to ask questions about your 5-star status and how to check to make sure you have everything completed. If you have any final questions for the Hallmark Awards, whether the individual categories or the chapter Hallmark Award categories, we're not going to read an entry and provide feedback at that session, but we do encourage you, if you have any last minute questions, anything, to please join us for that particular session, and we'll send that information out at that point real soon, before the end of the year. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. And Ryan, I think we have some bling. We do have bling to give out. So I just want to pull the file up. The numbers are 1 to 76. Hold on one second. Only take me a second. And actually, wait, hold on one second. I'm going to change that number. It's going to be numbers 1 through 77. So are you ready, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
All right, give me a number.
77.
77 would be Urani
Mm-hmm.
Lopez from Beta Kappa Delta at St. Monica College. She's a chapter officer. Yay. Okay. Write down the numbers.
I am.
Susan, give me a number.
About 18.
18. Da, 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 da. I wish I had a wheel. It would sound so much better. Dr. Peter Ufflin from the University of University District of Columbia,
Oh,
chapter advisor, Beta Sigma Upsilon of the Middle States region. So yay, Dr.
nice.
Yay. Jennifer, you're next.
Okay, I will do number 5.
Number 5. Hold on a second. Number 5. Can you give me another number?
Oh, sure.
Besides that one.
How about 7?
7. Okay. Brandy Lewis, Alpha Gamma Pi, Austin Community College.
Nice. Regional officer.
Regional officer. How many is that? So that's 1, 2,
3.
3.
Megan, give me a number.
43.
43. 43 would be Chris Case from Omicron Chi chapter, Paradise Valley Community College. Yay.
Nice.
All right, let's do one more. I'm going to pick on somebody. I just like to hear voices. All right. Let's see who's coming. Lisa Mayer from Bergen. Pick a number. You gonna pick a number for me?
Oh, I think she thought you were.
Oh,
You have to give it to her now, Patty. Come on.
all right,
You
we're gonna
have
give it
to.
to
Come
Lisa.
on.
Yay! Towards Bergen. Yay, Lisa. She's been attending all the sessions I know I've been watching. So
And I had wrote her name down too. So
there you go. It's a
That was
joke.
a good trick.
It was a good trick. Good trick. So thank you everybody for joining us. We're so excited that we've gotten through how many sessions? 4, 7. Well, we have 2 more to go one now and then next year. So thank you. And despite if you have questions, feel free to email us. We'll definitely be able to help you that way, or join. Ryan and I both have virtual hours that are available. Just email us and we'll let you know when they are and you can hop on. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.